You're not crazy and you're not lazy. And no, constant cravings, exhausting workouts, and hating the mirror is not your forever, especially not after 40, no matter what they've told you. Body freedom is stable energy, balanced hormones, eating carbs without fear of gaining weight, and feeling great naked. And that's exactly where this podcast is taking you. Welcome to the Body Freedom Podcast, where we dig into all things women's health and give you the real actionable tools to claim body freedom for yourself. Follow the show and leave a 5-star rating. It's how more women find us. Dr. Stephanie Dunlop is a board-certified emergency medicine physician and the founder of RootRx. After experiencing her own postpartum health crisis, gaining over 30 pounds in 2 months while being told everything was normal, she stepped outside her conventional medicine background to uncover what was really going on. And now she helps women get real answers through advanced lab testing and root cause analysis using her priority of dysfunction pyramid. Her philosophy is simple. We do not guess, we test. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for joining me today. I'm really excited to chat with you just in general about your story and your take on conventional medicine, moving into functional medicine. I think that it's such an important space for the two to kind of align. And I think you're the perfect person to tell us about it. So why don't we start with your story? You are an emergency room physician. That's an incredible job.
Yeah. Yes. It is. It takes a toll, but it's well worth it. And we make a lot of impact for sure. So I'm happy to do what I do.
Yeah, good. So how did you know you wanted to get into conventional medicine in the first place?
Oh, well, as the story goes, my mom said that I always used to say from the moment I saw my pediatrician that I wanted to be a pediatrician. Actually, I guess my pediatrician just had a really profound impact on me. And so I just said my whole life that I was going to be a doctor and I just wanted to help people. And then when I went to college, I actually saw my stepsister go through a whole kind of infertility journey, and that impacted me. And I wanted to actually go into reproductive endocrinology and infertility. So I went to medical school thinking I was going to do OBGYN then at that point. And then I realized that honestly, balance and quality of life was important for me too. And sure. I wanted to make sure that I was going to have that, and OBGYNs don't always.
Emergency room doctors do?
We do. Actually, yes, because we're not on call. So we just go in, we work our shifts, and then we're done, so we don't have ongoing necessarily continuity of care or clinic or any of those sorts of things. So there is a balance there. It's high stakes when you're there, and it's a lot of work right while you're there, but then you leave and you just get to leave it all out the door, which is nice.
That is nice. So do you remember there being a moment where you thought, there's got to be more to this piece? Because I know, you've moved, well, I don't know if you've moved into it fully. I'm assuming you're still an emergency room doctor. You have the RootRx. So tell us how you decided that there was more to the story.
Yeah, so it was definitely a slower progression, honestly. So it started off being actually on the front lines of COVID in the ER and seeing people come in. And it was very interesting how these very young, healthy people didn't really have issues with COVID, but all these people with comorbid conditions and different things going on who just weren't taking these preventative measures weren't able to be helped as well necessarily. And that was obviously very frustrating. And so I turned my eye towards more preventative medicine at that point. And my prior career, as well as that, I was a professional dancer. And then I got into group fitness instruction and training and that sort of thing. So I decided I was going to open my own fitness and wellness center. So that's what I did. And it's for all women and essentially just helping women get on top of their health early on so they don't end up in my ER. Right. So that was the initial thought process. And then when I had my son, actually a year after I opened my studio, then I started to go through my own health journey. And that's when really everything significantly changed for me. So I was active throughout my whole pregnancy. Everyone thought I was crazy. I was teaching classes the week I gave birth, I was like, we're going to keep it going. And I lost all my baby weight. I felt great. The whole snapback. I was like, oh yeah, we're doing it. Then probably about 2 months after postpartum. Then I just started to rapidly gain my weight back. I became really fatigued. All of a sudden, I had all of this brain fog and bloating, just things that I had never experienced before. And I started to realize something clearly had to be wrong. And so, of course, you go to the doctor and they're like, no, it's just stress. You're a new mom brain, all these sorts of things. Yeah, you got to love those responses, right? Everything's normal on your labs, of course.
Probably my biggest pet peeve is like the word normal. Right?
Yes.
Everything's normal.
Yes.
No, if I am feeling subpar, then we're not normal.
We are not. Yes. You're missing something. That's what that indicates, right?
Yeah.
So that really just propelled me to do my own research and to go down my own journey, because it's like the system that I trained within was failing me. And so that's when I found functional medicine, and I discovered all of these things by just doing more comprehensive testing on my own body, like leaky gut that I was dealing with because of all of my cortisol, my nervous system dysregulation that I hadn't been addressing, sleep because new baby, right? That is part of it too. And all of these things that were going on, my stomach acid, I couldn't digest food anymore. Like there's just so many components. And then that was all in turn affecting my thyroid. And I had some levels of subclinical hypothyroidism that were being missed because TSH alone was normal, right? And we just never tested any deeper. So just by addressing those things, I lost all 30 pounds of that. Just straight inflammation is what I feel like it was within 12 weeks. It's insane. It's how it just comes off of you and you feel so much better. I think I felt even better than before I got pregnant at that point, because before I got pregnant, actually, I think this played a big role in my story, is that I have been on birth control for probably like 15 years. And I don't think we talk nearly enough about the detrimental effects that can have on women's bodies and how coming off of it can really have a lot of ill effects. There is something called post-birth control syndrome. And I really think that's what I experienced. I just experienced it later because I got pregnant so quickly off of birth control, and it masked a lot of things for me.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. I feel like I have so many questions to ask about the functional side of things. But before I do that, how do you go to work and separate? You're seeing all of these patients now. Most people who come to the ER are in acute situations, right? And you're dealing with things acutely, not chronically. And so maybe there's a difference there. But how do you compartmentalize, like knowing all that looking at somebody going, I know your TSH is a 6, and on this side of the scale, that looks normal, but I know that's not normal. Like, what do you do?
So it gets tougher and tougher each time. And actually, my goal is to not be in the hospital as much by the end of the year and just fully kind of focus on the functional side, because it gets tougher and tougher. And system that we work within just binds our hands so much that I just feel like I'm doing people a disservice. And I don't like that, obviously. And so it is a compartmentalization. Obviously, like you mentioned, the acute conditions, we do what we need to do in those scenarios. And conventional medicine is great for emergent care. All day long, go see the doctor if you're dying. Please, let us help you.
Please.
When we're talking about preventative care, early signs of dysfunction, and women coming in feeling like they're going crazy or anxious. And I just give them my little tidbit. I'm like, off the record, you might want to look into this, and this. Think about functional, think about it, finding an integrative practitioner, things like that for when I do see those things popping up. I try to do my best to help them advocate for themselves as much as I can within the system that we have.
Yeah. That makes me feel, good for you for wanting to move out of medicine, like conventional medicine. That's what a crazy step. Like in my head, like you go to school for like 13 years, and then you realize that the reason you became a doctor to help people wasn't really what you wanted to do. Like that blows my mind to think that you could step away from that, because it is such an important role. And I do wholeheartedly believe that there is obviously a place for our physicians in this world. Like I will never say that we shouldn't, there's one over the other, but like, good for you. Those goals are incredible. I'm excited for you, and I'm excited to watch your journey on that. Let's move into the functional side. Do you think the things you experienced postpartum, including the birth control piece, but were maybe accumulated over decades versus just being like, and like your postpartum experience just kind of uncovered it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of things that I just never really paid attention to up until that point. They were kind of just like these little things brewing in the background that I always say, like, when women go through big hormonal shifts, a lot of things get unmasked. And instead of like a little flashlight shining on the situation, it becomes like this big stadium light on it all, right? Like, so perimenopause is a big, big thing right now. And that's what a lot of women are experiencing, these things that have been just brewing in the background. And all of a sudden it's like, rah! Like it's bad now at this point. But it's really just been going on the whole time. And a lot of what we see is stemming from gut issues that have just been unaddressed, and all of the gut just affects so many different areas, including your hormones. And so I do think for me, yes, a lot of things have been going on in the background. I don't think I realized so much how much back and forth and yo-yoing I had put my body through in terms of like being a dancer and like getting into shape for shows, and then also like doing fitness. And then I went through this like whole year of opening my studio, and I worked out like hard every single day. I felt like I was in the best shape of my life, and I could like eat anything I wanted and it was fine. It was not the same anymore. So there were definitely these shifts that occurred I hadn't noticed before, but they were very much highlighted postpartum.
I love that you said that, because I try to really talk about that a lot, because so many women just believe that once they are, diagnosed or told that they're in perimenopause or postmenopause, that they just have to accept, exhaustion, yes, weight gain, just like feeling crappy. I'm not in perimenopause yet, but I plan to sail through perimenopause, as best I can, because I truly believe that it's not like a life sentence. Like, I don't want to feel like a dumpster fire, for my next 40 years. Like, that doesn't feel like life to me. And I try to really highlight that if you are feeling symptoms of brain fog, anxiety, depression, weight gain, bloating, hormonal chaos, whatever symptom you might describe your perimenopause as, this is a metabolic issue, not simply ovarian decline. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not like that's what perimenopause is. It is definition ovarian decline. All the other things that you're noticing are truly just because those hormones are dropping. It is literally unmasking all the chaos that you have compensated for majority of your life. And to that point, you talked about the stress on your body is what I heard. What you said was professional dancer. That is crazy on the body. Fitness studio. I can relate. I had a personal training studio for 12 years and I was the same. I was like, there were some days where I worked out for like 2-3 hours because I had a break midday. I saw clients in the morning, saw clients in the evening. I thought I was the healthiest person because I was strong. I was like, go, 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 drink another cup of coffee, keep pushing. Right. And then my body just like totally crashed. It was like, I don't have the ability to do this anymore. Mine was prior to having kids and yours just happened to be after having kids. Lots of women that happens to in perimenopause. My point in saying this, the women that listen to this podcast are not lazy women. These are women who are pushing in the gym. They are dieting. They are watching what they're eating. They are trying everything to feel like they did in their early 30s. And they cannot understand that the exercise piece might actually be a contributing factor.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So when did you realize that piece, the exercise piece, the pushing, the stress on your body from that was contributing to your health?
So it had a lot to do with looking at my comprehensive lab testing and looking at it through a functional optimal lens. So when you look at things like your cortisol and your DHEA, and then you see that your adrenal glands are seriously fatigued, and that does play a big role, obviously, in perimenopause and menopause, because as your ovaries drop and decline, adrenal glands are supposed to take over, because they're the ones that are supposed to now pump out that estrogen and that testosterone. So if we don't have that, estrogen and progesterone. And so if we don't have that, then there's a whole issue there. And that's why some women sail through perimenopause and menopause and some women don't. The more optimized we get your body now, I always say the easier those transitions down the line in the future will be. And so that's how I feel now as well, because I think I was always just dealing with some level of adrenal fatigue. I always put so much on myself and my body was able to compensate until it wasn't able to compensate any longer. And that was the turning point. And then all the downstream effects of that came thereafter.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you're struggling with adrenal dysfunction or cortisol dysfunction. Can you tell us from a functional lens how that affects thyroid?
Yes. So I'll go through a couple layers in terms of that. So when we talk about your adrenal glands are what pump out cortisol. And so cortisol is also made from the same precursors as a lot of your hormones, right? So estrogen, progesterone. And so if you're not making enough of things like DHEA because your adrenal glands are prioritizing something like cortisol instead, then we have hormonal issues there. Also, we're gobbling up some of the cholesterol we need to make some of those thyroid hormones. So the other piece of that is cortisol has a lot of downstream effects. And a lot of times it tends to wear and tear at the lining of our gut and cause things like leaky gut dysbiosis or imbalance of the bacteria in your gut. And so then we end up with issues because most women don't realize that what matters the most is how much active thyroid hormone you have, that free T3. That's the number that matters and doesn't get tested nearly enough. Usually what you see on your labs is TSH. Maybe you get like that reflex to free T4 if the TSH is off, but most of the time it's just a TSH. And TSH can be normal all day long. Your free T4 even can be normal, but your free T4 is your inactive thyroid hormone. So if you're not converting it to active thyroid hormone, which is what matters, and that thyroid hormone conversion, 80% happens in your liver. And a lot of people have sluggish livers and liver detox pathways that are not working properly. And 20% of that happens in your gut. And so if your gut is in a bad place, which is, I'd say 70% of America because of the diet here, then you're going to have a T4 to T3 conversion problem. And so your body's going to feel like it's hypothyroid, even though you're not clinically hypothyroid. There's a big difference there.
Oh my God, you just touched on so much. This is why the holistic model means so much. And this is why it matters so much for women, because if you go to the doctor, let's even say your T4 is slightly low, right? But you and I might look at something from a functional range and be like, maybe this isn't a T4 issue. Maybe it is a conversion issue. Women are still being prescribed Synthroid or like a synthetic T4.
And you're like, you can't convert it. Like, what are we doing here? Yes,
right.
All the time.
Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. And so then like looking at the liver, and then you also touched on cholesterol. And so cholesterol is a precursor to actually making your hormones. And then you layer in the piece where women diet. They diet low fat. They're not eating enough fat to actually have your body make the cholesterol it needs to make the hormones. Like it is so interconnected, right? Women are afraid to eat fat because they don't want the calories. They think they're going to gain weight. They diet harder. It's harder on their thyroid. It's harder on their adrenals. And, this is why perimenopause symptoms exist.
Yes, you are so right. Diet culture is a lot of why perimenopause has become all the rage that it is now, why so many women are experiencing so many more symptoms than we used to, quite honestly. And, I preach that all the time about the cholesterol. Like you mentioned, like there is a such thing as too little cholesterol as well. Like, and all they talk about is like below this number. Oh, you're good. You're healthy. No, there's not enough there. Like there is a difference. And the other piece is that, there was something else that you mentioned in terms of, I think it had something to do with the thyroid that you mentioned, but like I said, it'll come back to me.
It amazes me when so we do a thyroid test as a base, like a foundation lab in my practice. And it amazes me when I look at a full thyroid panel and, antibodies are off the charts and they're like, oh yeah, like my doctor knew about that, but told me it was totally fine. Like any amount of antibodies in my world is not totally fine. Like we are not functioning well at all. And you cannot, treat or address just the thyroid. Like you said, it's so interconnected with your adrenal glands. It's so interconnected with your liver. It's so interconnected with your gut. And just because you don't maybe have typical gut issues. So for instance, lots of women say to me, oh, like, no, I eat clean. So have I my entire life eaten clean. Right. Clean, like as somebody in the fitness industry, it's like vegetables, chicken, rice, vegetables, chicken, rice. Like, you know what I mean? And I had a wild GI map panel, which is a stool test, which tells you about your intestines and the ecosystem that is in your intestines, it was lit up like a Christmas tree. You know what I mean? Like we cannot discount, A, food, B, what's happening in our other systems, and C, our stress load. We cannot discount how quickly our bodies deplete of minerals, deplete of vitamins, and do not absorb the food that we are eating when we are under stress. Like we can't.
Yeah. You can't discount it for sure.
No, absolutely not. So, okay, can you tell me if somebody came in, or maybe it's just your own personal experience, subclinical hypothyroidism, not diagnosed, what would you do? How would you address that?
So it's funny because we just had a client this week and she actually sent me a message this morning. She's like, I've been reading through like her protocol, and she's like, I had to stop halfway through because I just got so emotional because so many people just kept telling me nothing was wrong. And I knew that I didn't feel right in my body. And we discovered, it's very full blown Hashimoto's, like greater than 900 TPO antibodies, like very, very high. And, they just kept diagnosing her with PCOS, or you're not like doing enough. You're not, eat less, move more. My least favorite advice ever. But essentially what we have to look at when it comes to those states and even like just positive ANA states, even where you're not full autoimmune disease yet, like we can't diagnose you with a disease, which I hear that one a lot too. People go to the rheumatologist and they're like, oh, you don't have an autoimmune disease, but you have autoimmune activity. Your ANA is positive. We need to start calming inflammation now. Like so that's always the first thing that I look at when I talk about my priority of dysfunction pyramid. We have to start at the foundation. So we start with things like nervous system regulation, sleep optimization. That's when your body's going to heal, rest, recover, repair. We need to make sure you have enough of things like stomach acid. So doing things like home baking soda challenges or apple cider vinegar tests, even while we wait for your labs to come back, so we know if we need to start replenishing that. That way you can digest and absorb the food and the nutrients that are coming into your system. Then we can replete nutrient deficiencies. So that's just kind of that base layer. And then next layer up, we have to see like, is some of this brewing from inflammation in your gut, right? Because usually autoimmune diseases or subclinical hypothyroidism with the T4 to T3 conversion is a gut issue a lot of the time that we're missing. And then your liver, is your detox pathways, are they opened up, your lymphatics? Then, and only then, can we start to talk about addressing directly things like your thyroid or your sex hormones. And if a lot of times when we just really address those two foundational layers, the rest of it all just falls into place. And we don't even have to start talking about thyroid and sex hormones, right? Like, so that's why I hate it when people like jump straight to like parasite cleanses or detoxes or even HRT right off the bat. Not that I have anything against HRT, but we're just putting a Band-Aid on a larger issue. So like, let's make sure that we get to these foundations first. And then if we get there and we still need HRT, then great. But at least we've optimized it to the point to where you need the least amount possible as well. Right. So those are some of the things that I think about.
Oh my gosh, we're aligned. We are so aligned in this. My goodness. I also hate it when people are like, oh, I went to see somebody and they just like fixed my hormones. And I'm like, did they do this? Did they do this? Did they do? No, they didn't do that. They just gave me some Vitex and told me to, whatever. Anyway, I love that. Please tell us what the baking soda challenge is.
Yes. Yeah. So the baking soda challenge is basically in the morning on an empty stomach is when you want to do this test. And you're going to do, I think it's 1 tablespoon or 2. I don't know. I don't remember the exact amounts. It's a little bit of baking soda and some water, like 3 or 4 ounces of water. And then you're going to drink it over about 30 to 60 seconds. And then you're going to set a timer and you're going to see how long it takes you to burp. And so if it takes you more than 3 minutes, you likely have low stomach acid. And it's because of the physiological interaction of baking soda with the stomach acid in your stomach that should cause that burp. If you have enough, then it should cause that burp sooner rather than later. If you don't have enough stomach acid, that reaction won't happen.
Amazing. And then what did you say about the apple cider vinegar?
Yeah. So very similarly, it's like an apple cider vinegar shot and some water. And so again, don't do these two on the same day because it will obscure the results. But another day, empty stomach, you're going to do the same thing, apple cider vinegar and some water. You're just going to observe how your body feels. So do you have nausea? Do you have burning? Do you have nothing at all? A lot of times if you have nothing at all, that's also a sign of low stomach acid because your apple cider vinegar is actually helping to create more stomach acid so that you can digest your food better. And so then that means you can likely use apple cider vinegar as a digestive aid or supplement. Now, if you have nausea, burning, or like a histamine sensation, rash, rash, things like that, then that's an indication that your gut lining is damaged and we need to do some gut healing and gut repair.
And so what if your stomach acid was adequate? What would you feel?
Well, then that's great. So we just need to then be able to address any nutrient deficiencies that you're having. Your digestive process should likely be in a good place in terms of that. But the apple cider vinegar still is going to tell us, is that gut lining intact? Because that still is going to play a role. Even if you have enough stomach acid, but your gut lining is not intact, or we have leaky gut or that gut dysbiosis going on, then we still have to address those things.
I actually really love those two tests for like while waiting for test results. The other test that I love is a motility test. So eating beets or there's, I don't know if you do this or if you're interested in doing this, there's a recipe that you can use. It's not food dye because I wouldn't do food coloring. And now I don't know what they use to make muffins blue, but there is a recipe where you can essentially dye it, bake muffins blue, eat it, and your poop will come out blue. And obviously we want to see you digesting your food relatively quickly, but not too quickly. And so we do a motility test in my practice to see how quickly, things are actually being digested and whatnot. So I love those. And it gives you such good indications. And I love that we don't necessarily need a marker on a test, to tell us what we need to know about the body, because I do find that as incredibly validating as those data points can be for lots of patients and lots of clients, we can still get fixated on numbers, lab markers, and as practitioners and as the client going, well, how do I fix this marker? And as you and I just kind of talked about, that's very much a conventional medicine way of looking at a lab test. And what we should be looking at is more so patterns and correlating symptoms to the client versus being like, oh, I see an issue with estrogen. Let's fix estrogen. Or I see an issue, with that. We as functional practitioners need to be looking at it from a holistic standpoint. Every system, why is this happening? And where do we start?
Biofeedback.
Big time. Yes. I love your dysfunction pyramid. We, in my practice, we don't call it a pyramid, but we do have a diagram that is literally a period. And ours starts exactly the same. And I'm curious to know your stance on supplementation. Maybe I'll just leave it there. What is your stance on supplementation?
Yes. And I was actually going to bring that up. So it's like you read my mind, because I think a lot of women and what we tackle sometimes is, like you said, trying to tackle one thing, or they just think that the supplements are going to solve everything. And it's a lot deeper than that. Yes, the supplements can help, but we have to start at that base layer. If you are not regulating your stress, if you are not regulating your nervous system, if you are not sleeping well, and we haven't done the work to fix those things, you will not feel better. We can supplement all day long and it's not going to change. And so my stance on supplementation is, yes, it can help, but I like to get everything that I can from food first. Food, movement, lifestyle changes, and then use very targeted supplementation on top of that to address anything that we need, at least initially. And then even down the line, we have 4 pillars of our program. And when we get to that final phase, we call it the longevity and maintenance roadmap. And so at that point, we are focused on, what don't we need anymore? Like, what can we start to take away because your body is just more optimized, it's better fueled, and then we don't need these things anymore. The goal is not for you to have to be on these things for the rest of your life. So I feel like that needs to be very clear. And a lot of people will just supplement forever and ever and ever, and it's not really doing much of anything.
No, I agree. I often talk about supplementation as like 20% of your overall, puzzle. Yeah, no, your food, your movement, I call them lifestyle anchors. Like, if you are not sleeping, why are we giving you a bunch of things to help your liver? Like, your liver is going to have to process whatever you take, whether it be natural or pharmaceutical. And if you're not sleeping and repairing and being able to actually function, your detoxification actually function and process, what am I giving you this for? It's what a waste of money that becomes.
Right.
And we kind of just start to fall into, when that becomes the main focus, we start to fall back into a pill for every ill.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Which brings us back to that conventional medicine piece. Like, if I go to the doctor and it shows my TSH is high or elevated, and they give me some T4, we're not actually fixing anything. Or they give me some birth control, we're not actually fixing anything. We need to do the pieces of the lifestyle, and they're the hardest parts.
They are the hardest part. It's so much easier to just take a pill and hope that it's a magic bullet, right? at the end of the day. That's just not how our bodies work and operate. Environment, circumstances, they all matter. History matters. The trauma, the stress you've experienced in your past that we have not addressed, it all matters. Your body keeps a score on all of those things.
Absolutely. I agree. When you move into sort of the longevity phase, as you were saying, the maintenance and longevity phase, at that point, are your clients taught to, or maybe it's through the whole journey, to not just look at a protocol and follow guidelines? Are they taught to understand their body? Are they taught to go, oh, hang on a second, I have just had 6 months of incredibly high stress. I got let go from my job, or, there was a death in the family. And now I'm starting to realize that there are some digestive issues popping up again. Where do you stand? Because life happens, right? And,
right.
Healing is a journey. You can feel amazing and optimal. And then bam, something hits you, right? And you can kind of, I don't want to say fall off track. If you've done the journey, you are far ahead than you ever were. What is your process for helping people listen to their bodies, get more in tune, intuitive, and go, I'm going to do something preventative before we get back to where I started?
I feel like we like to weave that in throughout the entire process. And I always say, I love it when lifes when people are in the program, because then we can help you start to develop those strategies and those tactics to really know how to address those things, because life is never going to stop happening. And we have to know how to navigate those things so that we don't just kind of dive off the deep end, so to speak. And we know that we can always come back to our foundation. So what we like to really focus on are, what are your 3 foundations when things start to happen that you can just really come back to? You know that you can execute on them really seamlessly. And you know that when you do these 3 things, you automatically start to feel a lot better, because those little quick wins and quick dopamine hits, in a sense, they help us then propel the ability to really just start habit stacking, is what I call those tiny habits, and just stacking one on top of the other. So that's what we like to focus on first, is like, what are your foundations? We like to do some if-then planning with our clients in terms of like, if this happens in the future, then what are our next 3 things that we're going to do before we go down the destructive path that we normally used to. And so there's these 3 things that you have to do, and they come up with them themselves. I want it to be something that you can actually do. And then if we still get to that point, I always call it's informed consent. Right? We are grown women. We are adults. So we make that decision, but we are informed and know what the potential consequences of that are going to be. We're willing to accept them. And then we just come back home, back to those foundations again. Right? At the end of the day, we don't need to keep beating ourselves up over and over when we make different choices than what we would have hoped.
100%. Can you give us an example of some of these 3 foundations?
Yeah. So things like dedicated eating zones. Let me do my box breathing before I have a meal. Maybe it's also, I'm going to make sure that my phone is off 60 to 90 minutes before bed. I'm going to do a nighttime wind down routine. Or digital detox, we like to call it as well. Or maybe it's like, I'm going to get outside and I'm going to walk after lunch, for 10 minutes, or I'm going to get up and do some squats next to my desk for 10 minutes just so that I can feel like I'm moving my body. So it's all very dependent on the client and kind of what works best for them and their specific issues. But those would be some general examples.
I love that. And those are free. Every single thing that you just said, those are free. And you can easily just come back. The brain is so interesting how we can complicate things. You know what I mean? I need to look for something external. I need to add another modality. I need to, is this going to be the magic bullet or whatever? When it can be as simple as just taking some deep breaths before you eat a meal. You know what I mean? It can be as simple as getting off of your devices before bed.
Yeah.
That one's tough, but it's difficult. It's tough, but it's simple, right? It's a discipline at the end of the day. I like to talk about like chewing your food into mush, like give your digestive system a chance. If
help it out a little bit.
Help it out a little bit. I know for me, the very first thing that shifts when I'm under stress is my gut. Like it's like within a day, if I feel uptight or anxious, I am bloated or constipated. Things just don't feel right. And if I'm rushing through a meal, there's just no way that's helping it out.
Yeah. No.
Right?
Not at all. Yeah. For me, it's my skin. So I can tell immediately. Yeah. Breakouts, especially in like that hormonal zone. And it's like, okay, you need to chill. That actually happened to me this week. And this morning I was in the infrared sauna. I was relaxing and I was like, yeah, we got to detox. We got to slow it down because you're doing too much.
I love that. First of all, you did say you hate it when people focus on detox first. right? Or like when practitioners put you through a program. So my program is a lot about detox, but the word detox for me and in my program doesn't mean the same thing as like celery juice cleanse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like just get people.
And detox can mean very different things. Exactly like you said, it's just in social media land. Yes. Detoxes are like parasite cleanses and all these like harsh, crazy things that if we try to bind up things in your system and flush them out, but your detox pathways aren't even open, we can potentially make you feel worse before you ever feel better.
Yes. That is when I say detox, that is what we talk about. We talk about drainage pathways. We talk about making sure that you're pooping every day, making sure that you're hydrated, making sure that you're sweating, making sure that you're in, doing that consistently forever. Like we don't do that.
It's
like
not just a phase.
Right. That is part of our foundations. Like we need to make sure this is happening every day, all day long, because if it's not, you're never moving anything. You know what I mean? Like things are just clogging back up. And then again, that is part of the reason why you're feeling the perimenopausal symptoms or, the digestive issues, the hormonal chaos, because your body just recirculates, it holds on to it.
Wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we deal with a lot of people too with toxins, especially like mold as well. And so it's like, I just want to get it out of my system. I'm like, you can't yet. You're not even having daily bowel movements. So how are we going to eliminate this from your system? We can't go in with binders or any of these things until your system is working optimally and properly. And it needs cofactors, nutrients to be able to do that work. So it's just a matter of understanding. And I always say as women too, I think we operate a lot better when we understand the why behind the how. As well. And just having that breakdown of understanding, okay, this is going to cause this. So if I make this choice, I know that it's affecting this. Like just having that deeper understanding, it allows you to make decisions in a lot more informed capacity, quite honestly, and not just feeling like the doctor just told you to go do something just for the sake of doing it. Like eat less and exercise more when you know that makes you feel worse every single time, every single time.
Also, eating less, like most women that come to me don't even realize they're eating like 1,000 calories a day, right? Like once we start getting them to track their food, and then you think about how that ripple effects, if you don't have enough volume of food, you are not going to be pooping every day.
No.
You know what I mean? And then we're just like literally this like cascade effect through your body simply by not having a bowel movement every day because you've been dieting for so long and your body has adapted to surviving on 1,000 calories. Like my toddler eats more than 1,000 calories a day.
Right. Yeah. Same. My 2-year-old.
Yeah, exactly. So we have to remember that as one of the foundations, enough food, enough nutritious and nourishing food is going to be like the starting point to like having a proper bowel movement, getting those hormones into, balance again, having cognitive function, sleeping at night. I mean, all of it. Food is so important. Yeah. We need to stop being so afraid of food.
Yeah. Agreed. And having a plate with like this much amount on it is like that's a thing of like the 60s. So I like, let's leave that there. And having overflowing plates of food, diverse in color, like you're doing the right thing for your body at that point.
Absolutely. And if you are struggling with the idea of having a huge plate of food that fills you up, remember that we have been, I don't know how old you are, Stephanie. I grew up in the 90s. We have been indoctrinated with, low fat, eat less, tricks to eat less. You know what I mean? Like have a big plate, don't fill it all, have a small plate and have less food on it than you would on a big plate. Like ways to trick your body and your mind into thinking you're going to lose weight. Like it's just all crazy. We have to unlearn a lot of food noise in order to optimize our bodies and our health as we age. Like we cannot live the rest of our lives going, oh, I don't want to eat a whole avocado. Like, why the hell? Like, what guilt? You know what I mean? Are you telling, or is coming up, or what shame is coming up for you about an avocado?
Yeah. Exactly.
One of the, probably one of the most nutritious foods on this planet, unless you maybe have a histamine issue. There's obviously some nuance there, but I think we have to just remember that food is meant to nourish our bodies. And we can't be afraid of it. We have to change those stories in our head around food for sure.
Absolutely. Wholeheartedly agree. I can't tell you how many women I have come in who say, I eat like one meal a day. And it's like, and they've got Hashimoto's or they've got some thyroid. And you're like, that's the worst thing you could be doing for your thyroid right now.
Yeah.
And trying to navigate the ideas of things like reverse dieting and all of that. And when you've been indoctrinated in that culture, it's just unlearning a lot of things, but it's definitely not impossible. And once you realize you're feeling better by eating more and that your body composition is changing, maybe you're actually losing weight by eating more. You're like, maybe this is right. Maybe this is working.
I mean, losing weight like effortlessly is a sign of metabolic health.
Exactly.
Like if you feel, this is a great way to wrap this up. If you are somebody who has been trying everything, you're working out, you're eating clean, you're dieting, you've been doing this forever. What worked in your 20s is no longer working in your 40s. This is not a sign that you're doing something wrong. This is a sign that your body is like holding on to everything because it doesn't feel safe. It's not metabolically healthy. When you do all the things that Dr. Stephanie and I have been talking about today, and that weight just kind of falls off, like in your story, 30 pounds in 12 weeks, like a lot of it was inflammation. I have a very similar story. Your body is like, oh, okay, I can relax. You're doing something good for me. I can kind of coach up function, and metabolically it's a sign you're getting healthy. So you are doing incredible work.
Thank you. And just to piggyback on that, I just always say your body will never lose weight or let things go until it feels safe. It has to feel safe or else it's going to hoard everything before it lets it go. So
yeah. 100%. Thank you, Stephanie, for joining me today. Can you tell everybody where they can find you and follow your story and follow your journey as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram at DocStephanieMD. And then I also on our website, RootRxHealth.com.
I'll make sure those are in the show notes. Stick around for a second. And thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you.
That's a wrap on today's episode of the Body Freedom Podcast. And remember, body freedom isn't a fantasy reserved for women in their 20s. It's stable energy, balanced hormones, eating carbs without fear, and feeling great naked at 40, at 50, at any age. And every episode is walking you one step closer. Before you go, if you're not sure what's actually blocking your body freedom, take my free metabolism quiz. In just a couple of minutes, you'll find out exactly what's going on with your metabolism and what to do about it. The link is in the show notes. And if today gave you even one shift, tap follow and leave a 5-star review. It's genuinely how more women find this show and start claiming body freedom for themselves. I'll see you next week.